I attended the Advanced Windows Exploitation course from Offensive Security during Black Hat USA in Las Vegas, Nevada, August of this year, 2022. And boy, was it a doozy. In fact, hey, let me show you this. This is the book. This is it. Kind of a little bit of a thick boy, right? There's a whole lot of stuff to see in here. So if you aren't familiar, the Advanced Windows Exploitation course, or AWE, is the training course for OSEE, or Offensive Security's toughest, top-of-the-line, absolute top-tier, king certification, the Offensive Security Exploitation Expert. And this course gets into binary exploitation at the lowest level, diving into kernel exploits, trying to escape browser sandboxes and browser exploitation, or breaking out of a virtual machine or the hypervisor, and really hardcore, super elite stuff. Now let me add the disclaimer, I don't know what I'm doing. I am not a binary exploitation guru. I do not know much at all about all this low-level kernel stuff, and while I took the course, I'm still learning, and I'm not an expert. I don't claim to be. I don't think there are any experts in cybersecurity. There's too much to learn and too much to know. So I'm going to try, and this is going to be my attempt to showcase some of the stuff that I learned and what I've been doing in preparation to take the OSEE exam when the time comes. A little note here for 2022, because they've been such a hiatus from the other courses that would have been done in person in 2020, they postponed because of, the pandemic and stuff. 2021, they weren't doing a virtual or online course. So we were in 2 years in waiting for this live in-person class, 2022, and now they want to revamp or redo their exam environment. So I've still been sitting, waiting, twiddling my thumbs to try and take this exam, which should be coming 2023. With that said, I've had a little bit of time to prepare, and I need to do that. And I figured, well, I'll do my darndest to showcase some of the stuff here on YouTube, and hopefully you can learn a thing or two, and I can learn a thing or two, because your feedback, your constructive criticism, all that good stuff in the comments can help me learn just as well, and we'll suffer through this thing together. So anyway, enough of that rambling and banter out of the way. In this video, I want to try and set up our environment so we can play with some exploitation at that kernel level and have some fun and learn something new. We do need to set up our environment with virtual machines, get a debugger set up, get our debuggy machine, and there's a lot to do, so let's dive in. Before we dive into the video, here's a quick note from today's sponsor. Cybersecurity is a top concern for all organizations, especially businesses that outsource IT and security operations. But companies and providers that help manage and maintain security for others are held to a high standard, and you have to remain compliant. Meeting the bar for SOC 2 or any other compliance framework consistently is a challenge, especially as your company grows and takes on new initiatives. That's why today's SaaS companies and providers use Drata to automate your compliance. Drata does the tedious work for you and helps you put SOC 2, ISO 27001, GDPR, and many more on autopilot. It continuously monitors controls and collects everything you need for an upcoming audit. Drata integrates with your own already existing technology stack with over 75 integrations and enables you to easily onboard new team members. It ensures your organization continuously meets compliance criteria, from policies and training to multi-factor authentication and more. Drata even offers automated risk management with 150 plus threat-based risks pre-mapped to controls, so you can unlock the true power of automated testing all within a single platform. With Drata, you get visibility of your security posture, the trust of your customers, and confidence for each and every audit. Automate your compliance with Drata. You can start continuous security with Drata right now with my link in the video description. Huge thanks to Drata for sponsoring this video. First things first, again, let me add some more context. I'm sorry, I know I've been rambling for too long, but I'm going to be using my Windows 10 host, my machine, my computer, and I'm going to use that as the host where I'll do a lot of the debugging. That means I need to install a debugger. I'm going to be using Windows Debug or WinDBG Preview, and that'll be installed on my own machine. I do need to go ahead and have a virtual machine where I'll be installing a vulnerable kernel module, a driver. In this case, I'll be using the HEVD, or the Haxis Extreme Vulnerable Driver. If folks are familiar with VulnServer or vulnserver.exe, where you practice a lot of userland exploitation techniques, HEVD is basically the Vuln server of the kernel world at that ring 0 level. So we get to do a lot of cool stuff in a good training, education-based way where it is intentionally vulnerable, like problematic and full of issues and bugs by design, so we can learn. But kernel hacking is hard. With this sort of exploitation, right, if you make a mistake, normally when we're doing something in user land, you just get a seg fault or a crash, or your application just dies and falls over. In this case, your whole machine blows up, right? You get a blue screen of death and you have to reboot. It's not as forgiving when you get something wrong. So we need to be able to rapidly go ahead and debug and test and exploit and rapidly prototype what we're doing here. So there are different ways that you go about debugging with kernel exploits. You might set up a debugger to connect to your debug-e over serial port, like a COM interface port, right? Or Ethernet, right? Where you have some sort of LAN setup thing. Or you might be able to use something that I want us to get into in this video that helps abstract some of that stuff and makes this super nice and easy while we're working with virtual machines here, something called VirtualKD. This abstracts away a lot of the complicated stuff that we might need to set up our COM interface or whatever for serial port or get the baud rate right and all that stuff that is way over my head. I'm just a smooth brain 3-head. So in this video, we will set up not VirtualKD, but VirtualKD Redux, which is a new and improved version to do this stuff. Now that I've laid that foundation, let me add the disclaimer. That's a lot of stuff and we might not get to all of it in this video, but we'll see how we do. I've been recording for what, 6 minutes here with all my mistakes and random bad thoughts. Now, I've been rambling forever. Let's get to the computer screen. Let's do something cool. Anyway, here I am on my host computer. I am going to end up searching for Windows Debug Preview or WinDBG Preview, right? Zooming in here, we can download the debugging tools for Windows, WinDBG, and that is what we need here. This Microsoft article explains that the Windows Debugger or WinDBG, or as I affectionately refer to it as WinDBG, can be used to debug kernel mode and user mode code, analyze crash dumps, and examine the CPU registers while code executes. To get started with Windows debugging, you can see the Getting Started with Windows Debugging page, but really, we want to jump into the action. Let's get started here first to download WinDBG Preview. Let me add a note here. I think some people really prefer the classic original OG WinDBG. I think actually even after going through this course where a lot of the instructors and the trainers themselves had said for a long time they were using WinDBG Classic, like the OG version. WinDBG Preview they weren't too happy with because it was slow in some cases, but they made an update and now it's actually pretty fast and it does everything that you need to do and it's got that nice extra love and syntax highlighting and zoom in and out and it's just better. So we're going to be using WinDBG Preview. You can download the WinDBG Preview from the Microsoft Store clicking on this link here, and that should fire up the Microsoft Store for me. Check it out. Here it is, WinDBG Preview. Scrolling down here, it says, we've updated WinDBG to have more modern visuals, faster windows, and a full-fledged scripting experience, and time travel debugging, which is super slick, by the way. All with the easily extensible debugger data, model front and center. I'm sold. I'll buy it. Let's take 12. I want to get in store, and we can go ahead and open Microsoft Store just like this. Down below here, I've got the WinDBG Preview, and we'll go ahead and click Install. Okay, that's complete. Now we can go ahead and open WinDBG Preview and check it out. Here's our friend here, WinDBG. Not a whole lot going on. Obviously, we just got a lot of big open white space windows here, but once we go ahead and connect to something, we'll have some better luck playing with it. For the moment, this is all that we need. Next, we need to set up our victim virtual machine. So I'm going to be using VMware Workstation. I'm using VMware Workstation Pro. I believe you can use VirtualBox now. I think VirtualKD Redux allows you to use that just as easy here. And I'm going to be spinning up a Windows 7 virtual machine. Now I know, hey, you might be thinking, John, Windows 7 is super duper old. It's dated. Why the heck are we using it? Look. Kernel exploits, all this leak stuff where we've got new modern mitigations and low-level protections, it's tough. So before we dive into the deep end with like, whoa, beating up the kernel for Windows 11 or Windows Server 2022, let's keep our training wheels on. Let's start small. Let's try to crawl before we walk and then run, right? So bear with me. I'm going to be spinning up Windows 7. You can go ahead and hopefully set that up just as well. I'm not going to be showcasing where you might be able to find a Windows 7 ISO these days. You might just still have one lying around because you're a hoarder just like me, or you can find them in whatever corners and crevices of the internet. I don't know if it's even still on Microsoft's Evaluation Center. Sorry. So back to my computer screen here. Here's Workstation 16 Pro. Let me go ahead and open up on the side here. I will go ahead and create a new virtual machine. Typical, we can go ahead and install the operating system later. I'll use Windows 7 x64. We'll call that Win7 Debuggy. Hit next. I'm going to put 100 gigs for this hard drive. You can choose whatever you want here. Really, this does not matter. We'll give it about 4 gigs of RAM. I'll give it 2 I can give it 4 processors. Nah, let's give it 2 processors. It's yelling at me. Let's go ahead and do that and click finish. Now that that virtual machine is created, I'm going to right click on it and choose settings, and I'll move over to the CD area so I can use an ISO image and browse to where I store my ISOs. And I'll select my Windows 7 ISO so I can go ahead and set this thing up. And here we are in a teeny tiny Windows 7 desktop here. I do need to see if I can go ahead and install VMware tools, but first let me shut down this machine so I can take a snapshot. Okay, virtual machine is now off. Let me go ahead and take a snapshot, call it fresh install. If I turn this thing back on, I'll go ahead and log in here. And now let me see if I can right click and install VMware tools. Oh no, VMware Tools Setup Wizard ended prematurely because of an error. Your system has not been modified. Lame. Let me shut down. I'll create a snapshot trying to install VMware Tools. Okay, so from when I had done this previously, I was able to go ahead and download some manual updates, and that might have been able to get it to work. The problem is I can't copy and paste into this virtual machine to get those links. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try and go to, yeah, I know, IE8, go away. I'm going to try and go to my own host where I am serving the links here that might be able to take me where I need to be. Oh, I'm listening on port 8000. Duh. Okay, there's my index.txt, and this should include the links that I could use here. This actually all came from a forum post that I found on the VMware communities here. So let's see if I can go to this. Let me turn off protected mode because that seems to be, yeah, I'm fine. Trust me, Windows 7, you are already at risk. So let's go to this link that I was referring to. Can you grab these installers, pretty please? No. All right, let me just go ahead and download them and I'll put them here on this box. All right, I downloaded them manually and now I'm just gonna slap them over here so that this page should be able to go find them naturally. Come on. Oh, I kind of stopped the server. That might be why. All right, let's grab this fella. Perfect, that is downloaded. Let's go ahead and grab the other one just as well. And hey, of course, I will go ahead and put these links in the description of the video so you can go ahead and use them just as well. Hop up over to downloads. Now I should be able to go ahead and install these manually. Okay, the first one is done. That does need me to restart my computer, but let me go ahead and install the second one before I do that. Yep, go ahead and install. Okay, now that that's done, we can go ahead and restart the computer, and then let's try and install VMware Tools one more time. It's like it needs to do whatever Windows updates. Let's let it go. Okay, go ahead and log in super quick. And now that those are installed, let me see if I can go ahead and right click and install VMware Tools once again. With that, we can run setup64.exe, allow it to go, and we can try this one more time. Let's go for a typical installation, and that looks so much better. And there we go. It looks like it is trying to figure out my resolution, and we are looking good. Windows 7. Still pretty choppy to move things around, but whatever. I think it's done. Like, it's not telling me that it's done, but I'm pretty sure it's done. Yeah, I'm gonna be bold and just kind of close this and be done with this. Oh, no, I don't want to cancel it. Never mind. Should I just kind of reboot? No, let's just try and shut down. I am going to beef up some of the resources because it's weird to me that this thing is still so sinking slow. I think it sounds crazy and dumb to, you know, give this thing 8 gigs of RAM. It's Windows 7, honestly, but let's try it. Okay, now we got a full screen and it seems a heck of a lot peppier. Looking good, regular Windows 7 here. All right, super peppy Windows 7. Let's see if I can copy and paste some files into this thing. I'll see if I can right click and paste, and there, looks like I can. So all is well, and we can go ahead and shut this thing down and take one last snapshot. Installed VMware Tools. Next, we need to install VirtualKD or VirtualKD Redux on our host computer so that it can manage the virtual machine with the vulnerable kernel drivers for us. And that should be pretty easy. It's just a matter of downloading it and getting it spun up. Remember, I'm using VMware Workstation for this. I'm not quite sure if your workflow is different from VirtualBox, but we can go find out together. There is a whole lot of detail on this. If you end up going around and Googling for VirtualKD, you can see some of the stuff from Hexrays, the folks who put out IDA Pro and other debuggers and disassemblers. But let me go ahead and just simply Google VirtualKD Redux. And there we go. We do have something on GitHub that we could work with here. This is what is referenced as the official supported one. Note that it does have support for the latest VirtualBox and VMware Pro Workstation. I think this was Okay, at least updated 7 months ago. You know what? I can't be too upset with that. If we move to the download section, you can download the latest release here, and we'll go ahead and grab the zip file. There is a quick and easy tutorial to go ahead and get started with VirtualKD Redux. It says in the guest virtual machine, and we are going to want this in both our guest virtual machine and the host machine so they can kind of communicate with each other. That makes sense. So let's go ahead and spin up our Win7 debuggy one more time. And let me go ahead and copy and paste my VirtualKD Redux zip folder. There we go. Now that is present on the desktop, we can go ahead and extract all of this just to our desktop with VirtualKD as the name here. Perfect. And the getting started tutorial suggests that we go ahead and use the target64 folder here. You want to run VM install in the guest virtual machine. We're not using Windows 10 in this case, so we don't need to worry about that. So let's go into the target64 folder and then run our VM install. Let's go ahead and hit yes on this. And it says this program will prepare your guest operating system for debugging with VirtualKD Redux. The boot manager configuration will be updated accordingly. To start kernel debugging with VirtualKD, you will need to restart this guest OS. We'll create a new boot entry with the default prompt here. Disable signature enforcement manually. You do have to press F8 and go ahead and do this every single time. That's not too bad, but we can go ahead and click install here and be good with it. It does give us that notification. You will have to disable driver signature enforcement manually at every boot to go ahead and use VirtualKD Redux. Not too big of a deal, just a couple extra clicks. Now it is installed successfully on the guest virtual machine, and we have to go ahead and use VMWare on our host machine. Let's go ahead and restart. Now, as we reboot the virtual machine, you'll notice that we get brought into the prompt here for the boot manager, and we will have to go ahead and press F8 on our keyboard, where we can move downwards, and actually hitting the up arrow will wrap around, so that's a little bit faster, and you can just hit enter on disable driver signature enforcement. That works great, and this virtual machine will spin up for us. Now note, I don't have our VMMon monitoring over on my host. I need to go ahead and get that set up just as well. But that's why you're not seeing Windows 7 boot right now. You can see I'm stuck at my starting Windows because we're waiting for VirtualKD to catch it. But we'll need to go ahead and get that spun up. So I'll move out of this virtual machine and I'll pivot over to my host where I will go ahead and run our vmmon64.exe. I appreciate you, Smart Screen, but you're totally fine. This can run anyway. And check it out. Ooh, Windows Debugger even already popped up for us. And if I actually take a look at my Windows 7 VM over here on one side, note that VirtualKD is tracking this. It sees my VMware x64 process, and you can see that the Windows 7 debuggy is running. My Kali VM is still up and available, but that's not too much of a concern here. We do know that we want to either run the debugger or have it just pop up automatically like it's already done for us. So check it out. If I go ahead and click go over up here in the WinDBG, that will now start my boot process for Windows 7. It'll take just a moment, but you'll go ahead and see the Windows icon and logo start to come together here. So just like that, our Windows debugger caught the kernel, and we can get to control it or do anything we might want to do with it just as it boots, or we can just let this thing go. And that's something that we'll be able to play with. Check it out. Here's our Windows 7 machine running on the side. I'll go ahead and open up command prompt and we can do something, whatever we want, right? We can just do a who am I? But note, I'm able to type in here, but the moment I try and hit break on my debugger, you'll see that we'll go ahead and stop the virtual machine. Check it out. Windows Debugger says, hey, you're seeing this message because you either pressed Control-C, or if you're running the console debugger, or break if you're running the GUI debugger. This is not a bug or a system crash. You just broke interaction so that you can play with it. Notice I can't click into my virtual machine anymore. I can't type into it. I can't work with it because my debugger is catching it at the moment. I'll need to go ahead and mess with things in the command input box or just let it go. And now I can get back to my VM, but we can break in and out whenever we really want here, thanks to our debugger. And we're working with the full virtual machine, not just a regular application that you might be used to with userland debugging. Now I can go ahead and click stop debugging, and that will just, hey, let the Windows debugger detach from this. And my Windows 7 VM, well, I guess it's still currently not attached right now, so I might have just hung it. Yeah, he looks pretty borked. Let me go ahead and restart. Now again, super quick hotkeys to be able to press F8 and then disable drivers. VirtualKD will go ahead and kick this thing off. It'll see it here. We will be stuck in a little bit of a halted position unless we go ahead and run the debugger and then hit go, because it will want to go ahead and connect to this. We'll hit go and then we'll be able to start Windows as needed. Nothing wrong with that. We just have our debugger connected and we can play with this thing. With that, I know we've been rambling for a while, so what I'm going to do is end up taking a snapshot of this and its previous past state so we can keep track of, yes, we are using VirtualKD, but in the next video, I think this is a fine time to wrap things up because we've been rambling for a while. We'll go ahead and install HEVD and use the OSR loader to be able to get that embedded. And then VirtualKD will be able to catch it and we'll have something to exploit while we're hacking away at this thing. So if anything, I hope this was a decent video and getting spun up with WinDBG, WinDebug preview installed on our host alongside VirtualKD and even a Windows 7 virtual machine. I know it's old school, but that way we have a little bit of runway to test and learn something new. And hey, we were able to get VMware tools installed on Windows 7. So please bear with me. I know this is long-winded, but I think that's the best way for you to learn. You get to see all the mistakes, all the rabbit holes, all the walls that we run into. And in the next video, we'll finish up our environment and get HEVD, or the Hacksys Extreme Vulnerable Driver, finally installed and ready to rock. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it's a long one, but I promise we're almost there getting the fun stuff, and we'll see where we go next. We got quite a journey ahead of us. This is a big book. Hey, if you did like this video, please do those YouTube algorithm things. Hit me with all the algorithms, like, comment, subscribe, etc. Thank you so much, everybody. See you in the next video.